Yeah, this feels weird.
little
Because
bit.
you're just like, oh, I've known you for like almost a couple months now and we're doing this.
So nervous. It's like a
That's
job
okay.
interview.
Don't worry about it. Okay, so tell me, what's your name? Who do you play? And what's the racing class?
My name is Steve. I play Dagon, the half-elven rogue.
I'm Maddie May. I play Cab Starkweather, who is a wood elf ranger.
Sure. So my name is Matthew Groppe, and I played a character named Enduriel, who is a wood elf druid.
Yeah, my name is Julio Ortiz. I played a character called Mirren Valifar, and he was a tiefling hexblade warlock.
I'm Merlin, and I played 2 NPC characters. Traver, which was part of the PC storyline, and then Bombador, who is more of a throw-in to just as a merchant wanting to help out people for a price.
What was your favorite part of the campaign?
I think there's a difference between the most important and my favorite moment. So my favorite moment is in the very first one-shot when I rolled a natural 20 on opening the door and everyone else rolled sub 10. Yeah.
I honestly would say I really loved our dealings in Orlane. I even though it was a crazy turn of events, the Golden Grain scene and things following after that was really fun. I really enjoyed when we went under the temple in Orlane and had that fight and just kind of discovery that was cool and really fun.
Probably when I did the whole distraction bit, just because I didn't expect it to work, where I thrust the sword in the air and gave the oath, and then all of a sudden I see 5 of the knights around me. I was like, oh god, this worked. I don't know what to do now.
Honestly, it was the dungeon crawl. It was the whole last 4 sessions that we had. Because even though that's like such like a stock and like traditional part of D&D, it's always just fun. Just to getting to like bash like all these random like monsters in this dungeon. And the thing is, like, I didn't like when we fought the harpies, I wasn't like, why are there harpies here? I was like, no, this is a dungeon, of course there's harpies here. Like, it was just like getting to experience that, just a true solid dungeon crawl.
But I think the most important moment was when we were in the stable and Dagon got really mad about the dead horses and wanted to kill the farmer, and Cab pulled him aside and said, like, this is not the farmer, this is something that's overcome him, and we need to separate that, because if you don't, you're going to do things that you regret to people who actually don't earn it. And I feel like that was where she really showed a soft and emotional side for the first time.
At any point, did you think either you or another character was going to die?
Yeah, I thought Dagon was gonna eat it twice in the explicative fight.
It was probably a given at the very end. I wasn't sure who it was going to be, but we're going up against something thinking it was a god or wanting to be a god. Somebody was going to fall. I wasn't imagining it was me 3 times.
I definitely thought during the end fight somebody was probably going to die.
I think we were in the second phase of the explicative fight where she was a bone naga and he went down and our druid is looting. And I'm just like, hey, all my stuff literally just buffs me. Like, I've already given him my last healing potion and he's in the drink. Like, he was floating in the river at that point, I think.
How do you feel like your relationship with Mirren formed? There seemed to be a lot of signature back and forth between you two.
I don't know, I guess it was just because he might have been playing the straight man, or I might have been the straight man, or...
Felt like almost like a big brother, little brother type of relationship where he was like, where I would like say an idea of like how to handle something and he'd be like, that won't work. And I'll be like, it will work.
Just bouncing stuff off each other, not thinking about it and doing it, and it just worked out. And I guess my character might have saw in him as a friend he never had growing up, so.
You know, it was just, the getting to butt heads was like always fun to me. Just having that little bit of like, almost like rivalry, you know, it's like, yeah, I'm kind of the new guy here, but take it easy. Like, I kind of get some ideas too, and if they don't work, then they don't work, and that's what's D&D, you know?
So how does Cab feel about being a troglodyte mother now?
I think this is definitely going to be her biggest challenge because taking down a half-god cult leader is, it is difficult. But now she has to raise a naturally chaotic, evil, smelly, small reptile. And she is determined to do a good job and make sure that Rodney lives up to his full potential.
If you could have a vegetable named after you, what one would it be and why?
Yeah, that one I've never really even considered too much on. It's just never been a big thought.
So the big ones in Orlane were like tomatoes and rutabagas, right?
I would like the tomato because even though we did kill the sheriff, I agreed with his tomato enthusiasms, and I think the mayor is wrong about the rutabaga.
I feel like Marin would be like a sweet potato, because he's like I guess I don't know. I really don't know, honestly.
I think because in honor of the Golden Reign and the lineage that the owner had, he's very proud of his lineage and
That you destroyed.
that I destroyed. So I think I should take up the mantle, and in my elder days, I would eventually revisit Orlane and start a prize tomato farm.
Oh, the mayor wanting to switch Orlane over to a more rutabaga-based agricultural society, thinking that it is a better vegetable? No.
How about this? Tomato or rutabaga?
Probably tomato.
Probably an onion. Simply because, just like an onion, the old attaché, the old thing, I've got many layers. And they always make you cry.
When you were signing the contract with Bombador, what made you agree to sign a blood contract for equipment?
Mirren signed it.
Yeah, completely honest, that was more for comedic things than like any other solid reason.
Total, just we'll deal with it when it's done. We have to get this stuff. So
I think Marin had this running joke where he was like, hell's not that bad, but it's like Marin himself has never been to hell, but like he knows that tieflings derive from demonic blood, like from demonic blood in your family line. So he's like, hell? Oh, I got cousins in hell. Like hell's not all that bad,
Have you prepared any areas for us that we didn't go at all?
Yes. I think that is the curse of a DM sometimes, is over-preparing. There are definitely some locations that they haven't gone to yet, they haven't explored, and because of that, I think that we'll probably get a chance to loop back to it. One of the beauties is if you over-prepare, you can always use that for another session. So we may see some of those other altercations in the future. What do you think was the most important moment for your character? Was it the same thing?
No, probably the dream sequence, the one-off. Because he got to elaborate on what happened with his past and where he was going in his future and why he couldn't just live in the imaginary world because he had to help everybody else that he kind of bonded with his family.
You were the first person to do a campfire story. How do you think that helped you flesh out your character?
I think it really gave a lot of weight to Marin that like people didn't expect him to have, because he is so laid back. People, I think, us not knowing about our characters, obviously at that point, it was, up to that point, I had been just there like to bash some brains in and be a little comedic relief. So I think getting to tell that tale really made me think about the character in like a deeper fashion and being like, oh, this guy's not just a happy-go-lucky guy. He seems that way because it's almost like making up for lost time, not having friends when you were younger too, or not having that big brother like Dagon to like butt heads with and say, no, I got it, like type of thing.
What was one of the scenarios that you totally didn't expect?
Oh man, there were quite a bit. I did not expect Dagon to grab the evil cleric who was in bat form and shove him into a crocodile's mouth. I did not expect Cab to use Beast Bond on a troglodyte baby and now adopt it as her pet. I didn't expect them to kill the sheriff. So, what was going through Cab and even Enduriel's mind when they attacked the sheriff?
Also Enduriel's fault.
That was definitely not what I had envisioned happening.
Enduriel had attacked the deputy, so at that point, we needed to attack the sheriff in order to get out. He was reaching for something.
I can't remember if it was Cab's bow and arrow or sword, or if it was my hoof that ultimately landed the killing blow.
I let the arrow go, and it's an easier fight than I thought it would be.
What was going through your mind during the fight scene in the Golden Grain Inn?
You know, I was entirely confident there was something going on. I didn't anticipate what transpired.
It was 100% Enduriel's fault.
I knew I had to get to the bottom of it, and I wanted to pull Karen, you know, and Doriel just kind of being brash and unexperienced with those social situations, and so just kind of demanding. It's like, no, I have to get to the bottom of this. I have to talk to the cook. Of course, after that, when things started to catch fire, I was just like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. Like, things are not going as I might have anticipated, but it was fun all the same, just to deal with that.
Could you see Dagon becoming a knight?
Yes. Because even though he started out as a thief, as I always joke with everybody, he's been the least greedy character in the party so far. Matt's character is like, ooh, treasure, as the big snake thing is killing everybody else. And Maddie in the very first one is like, oh, this ogre has the werebear has a pouch with 3 gems in it. Nobody saw that.
You're starting to DM now, and you've been doing it for a couple sessions. What's one of your favorite things about DMing?
I love giving in to the shenanigans.
The favorite part of as a DM is being able to watch the players actually come together and collaborate instead of allowing their individual egos overdo their character, to overshadow their character.
When you obviously want your players to like progress the storyline or the session in some way, but they're just like, can I roll to see if there's like a crab on this beach? And you're like, yeah, sure. And then the other one's like, can I roll to see if there's another crab? And it's like, yeah. And then like, can we make them fight each other? It's like, yeah, go ahead. And I got crab stats right here for you. Go ahead and roll an attack.
I think my favorite part about DMing is probably the fact of creating conflict and resolution. Usually good stories involve a piece of conflict in which everyone feels the drama, and then the creativity of the players when they get to come up with the resolution of it, because usually that's not something I can predict. It just comes from their own imagination.
And it's like, yeah, giving into the shenanigans, especially because, you know, I had been, like, my friends that I'm playing with right now, we have known each other for a long time. So it's like, you know, I know that they're going to be silly. And, like, just kind of giving into it, but not, like, fully. Like, there's still a thing where it's just like, okay, the crabs are done fighting, let's head into the dungeon, you know, sort of thing.
Moving along with that theme, what was going through your mind when you went back for the book a second time? At the very end when you started flipping through again.
Right. So, like we mentioned throughout the course of the journey, he had made several of these decisions that originally wouldn't have aligned with kind of his drive at the beginning. But as this story went on and he had made more of these decisions, it seemed the darkness kind of called to him a little bit. And the allure of having the power to make a larger impact was definitely strong.
Did the DM think anything would come from the crypt of the Dillian Order? Did he think a player would be interested in becoming one?
No, not really. That was just an opening session, kind of session 0 for everyone to get to know each other and kind of go on a very quick one-off. I didn't really expect anything to come out of it, but it turns out it had a pretty substantial impact on one of the characters towards the end of his arc, so I'm really excited to see where that character goes from here on out. What was going through your mind when you finished Exploita not once, but twice?
Yeah, that was really cool because, you as the DM gave me this mechanic for my weapon where I would get a little extra bonus to attack and damage rolls, but I would only have, was it 3? I would only have 3 rounds to actually finish off who I'm fighting before I get a level of exhaustion. And that was always a wary thing to me. Like, I went into this fight almost like metagaming a little bit because Marin had never actually experienced that exhaustion. But the player, Julio, was like, I can't do 6 rounds with this lady. Like, I can't, So I went into the fight just like knowing like I gotta strategically summon this. And so when I finished her off the first time, I remember it was that 3rd round. The second time I pulled off like one of my favorite combos that I figured out how to do midway through the campaign, which is, both like, it's things that happen on the person's turn that attacks me. So like it's things that I have to like just sit there and like take. So I strategically like save my spell slot just for that one spell that would be like, okay, this gives me a little extra HP, but it also just hurts her automatically without a save when she hits me. And then I Hellish Rebuke on top of that. And again, that was another time, the second time that I finished her off, it was another time where I didn't think she was almost out. I was like, I'm just taking a chance, and if I go down because she hits me, I go down. But it felt very rewarding to like be able to figure out those kinds of mechanics in D&D and like actually get to use them in like a really, really cool way or a really good way.
Do you think Induriel is going to turn evil now?
I don't think he wants to turn evil. Again, I think it's more of he has felt relatively inconsequential, and in his desire to want to become more influential in the dealings of the party and being able to make a significant difference, while he definitely did from a support perspective, he wants to be able to do that more, perhaps, and the allure of this book and just the powers of darkness might, enable him to do that. So I don't think it'll be a full-fledged, we're going down the dark side, but I could dabble.
What was going through your mind in the session where we decided to skip all of the dungeon rooms?
Yeah, I'm actually happy about that. Mostly because this dungeon has like 40 different rooms. That's a lot. And one of the beauties of being a DM is that what's written on the page can be used as kind of like a template. You don't have to follow it exactly. You can move around rooms if you want to in order to create scenarios that would be maybe more dramatic. And so even though they didn't go through every single room, they went through a lot of the most important rooms of the dungeon. How does it feel to finish a campaign?
Pretty good, but I still want to. Now I want to continue on and do maybe a Waterdeep side quest.
I felt very satisfying, but I have a lot of questions.
Great. I was thinking, though, that we might come back to our lane after we had, completed the quest. We met with the mayor and everything.
It was nice to see the campaign come to a conclusion. Now, is that campaign an actual conclusion? That's the story in itself.
Because I do think that there was still other things to take care of, the band of orcs, and of course going back to Hachuk and exploring that. And of course there was the roaming band of militiamen that were coming after us that we had no idea what was going on there, and I feel like that was a story arc we could have pursued, perhaps.
A lot of sessions in the past that I've run, they extend out for maybe even years. You don't really know how long they're going to last for. And one of my fears is that one of my consistent players will have to drop out for any numerous of reasons, and that storyline that they've developed for maybe even a year just kind of goes nowhere. It just ends. So when we can do something that's kind of short and succinct and we can wrap it all up, it feels good to be able to do that.
It feels really good. I didn't know going in how long this campaign was going to be, but I'm in the mindset that like not every campaign has to be like a year long thing. Like I think especially with like newer players, they might not like where their character is going or ending up, and I think playing a shorter campaign really helps with that. And like it kind of makes you think about your next character too. It's like, how would I handle my next character? You know, if it is a longer campaign, how do I go about that?
But to experience it for me personally, it's been a minute. It has been a minute.